Welcome to Tikvah Minds. I'm Elijah Loving, and today we're going to go over the basics of color theory and which color do we pick? That's what we're going to do, because we do things here. In this video, we're going to go over the basics of what is color theory. We're going to go through the terms, some tips and tricks in terms of how to choose the right color, what color combinations, and things that you should be thinking about when you are choosing which color, right? Now, yeah. We're surrounded by the world of color. Color TV. So yeah, we're surrounded by the world of, well, color, right? As artists, it's sometimes hard to choose which color, and that can be a very frustrating task. So how do we go about doing that? But before we get started, one of the things that we want to do is, well, what is color theory? Well, essentially, color theory is the idea of a combination of art and science. And how do we go about doing that? Now, there's this thing called the eyeball. Now, within your eyeball, you have this thing called cones on the back of your eyeball, actually. And the light comes into your eyeball and it hits those cones. Now, one of the cool things or unique things about what makes the theory part of color theory is that we all have a unique view of how we see the world. It's with this unique view that artists are able to create amazing harmonies that any of us would have ever thought of before. But it creates this way to be able to create awesome combinations. Like I said, no one would have ever thought of combining them in a particular way with an awesome art or whatever that might be you see at the art museum or that sort of thing. So let's go over some of those basics. We're going to do it on my computer here over here. So come join me.
So this is the basic color wheel. This is the traditional color wheel that more than likely we've seen in one form or another in our grade school classes and wherever we've been throughout our crazy life. Now, if we break this down into a few simple things, yes, we know our red, yellow, blue. These are the primary colors. These are the colors that make up pretty much everything that, well, it makes up the world around us. These are the basic forms of that color. The next category would be the secondary colors. And these secondary colors are like your oranges, your purples, and your greens. And so they are equal combinations or equal mixtures of the blue and the red, equal purple, and the equal measurements of your yellow to your blue, get your green, right? And so on and so forth. So this would be your secondary colors. Your next category will be your tertiary colors. And tertiary colors are essentially where you would mix equal parts of your violet or your purple with your blue, and you get a blue purple or blue violet. And then the same goes for you measure your equal amounts of your red to your purple, and you get a red violet. And vice versa to like your yellow mixed with your green. You're going to get more of a yellow green, or a blue mixed more with your green. You're going to get more of a blue green. So this would be your, again, tertiary colors. This makes up your traditional color wheel, all the colors that we've grown up with and throughout. Now, the thing is that this was, first and foremost, thank you, Sir Isaac Newton, for this help. And there's a lot of other philosophies and opinions out there that have been advanced since Sir Isaac Newton. But in essence, it really comes down to three categories. And these three categories would be what you see here, your red, yellow, and blue. Now, most of us at this point in time are used to the ideas of your RGB, which would be basically your monitor, or CMYK, which would be more of that print element. But in essence, these are the basic ones. There's many more than that in terms of different color theories and how we might break it down and do some awesome magic tricks. but this would be your basic form of that color wheel. Again, this is a very expansive subject, but this would be a great basic start to that. Your next area that we need to talk about is these 4 basic terms. Hue, which is just another fancy way of saying color. And then you also have, so that would basically make your purple or your blue or whatever color that may be. So that's hue. Your next category, your next term that you need to know about is saturation. And saturation is just another way of saying chroma, or even better, your intensity. One thing that you can see here is that as you go from the red to the gray, you lose that intensity. It becomes less saturated, as they say. Now, one really cool trick, and this is one of my favorite tips and tricks that I've ever learned that you can really use on any given day, is take your eyes and squint really hard so you can still see through your what you're looking at. But it's almost as if by squinting, you can see that the red and the gray on the far end are essentially the same value. And that's a really cool technique to really determine what value you're looking at. And that brings us to our next term, which is value. Now, if you go to value, you add more white to the green, you're going to get what's called a tint. And then vice versa, if you add more black to your green, you're going to get what's called a shadow, or shades rather. And now the last one, if you add gray to that green, you're going to get what's called tone. And so those are the other aspects of that. So you have your shades, the white, the shades, the black, you have your tones for the grays, and then you have your tints for the whites. Now, the last category that we'd like to talk about before we head out is temperature. And temperature is essentially when you have this purple here in the center between the 2 other purples, we can see that there's a warm purple on the far right, and then on the far left is the more cool purple, and that can really go a long ways to adding maybe a mood. A lot of nighttime pictures, they're going to have more of that blue tint, or when you're talking about more of that passion, it's going to have more of that warm temperature or quality to that color. So it's just really thinking in terms of cool versus warm, or blue versus your warmer colors on your color wheel. Now, the last group that I want to talk about is really harmonies. And harmonies are a way of gathering, well, like colors. In this case, the first one that we're going to talk about is monochromatic. And monochromatic is simply that color. We'll go into other sort of descriptions here in a second, and you can see with all my little chicken scratch and that sort of thing. But the next category would be complementary, which is essentially the opposite of that color, the yellow versus the purple, blue to green, blue to orange, red to green, and so on and so forth. These would be your complementary. The next category would be that split complementary, and that's just basically an expansion upon the complementary itself. So instead of just purple, you're dealing with both with the warm and the cool versions of purple, or red purple, or blue purple, blue violet. Which leads to your next category, which is your hydratic. And the hydratic is one that is equal parts away from each other on the color wheel. So this would consist of, in this case, all your secondary colors, or your tertiary colors, or all your primary colors is basically what hydratic means. Your next category is essentially an expansion about the complementary colors in a way, but it's a tetradic. And a tetradic is basically where you're going to choose colors that are in pairing or in opposites of each other. More than just one, which is basically the complementary. This is going to be combinations of 2 on each side of that color wheel. The last one that we'll talk about is the analogous. Analogous is basically you're choosing one section of that color wheel, generally grouped in terms of 3s. Now, with all this being said, really the key to any harmony that we do, the bottom line to it is practice. You have to practice, 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 practice. I don't know if I can say the word practice enough. You have to practice. Now, these are a combination of 5s that I've done for you guys, and you can tell that I really do like my oranges and my blues. Maybe I'm a Broncos fan at heart. Not really. They're donkeys. In any case, sorry, Denver Donkeys fans. But regardless, the key is that it takes practice. You're not going to be able to figure out all the combinations that you want to do. It takes time. It's not always easy to go through it. But again, through time and practice of really seeing, be it the values, using your shades, using your tints, using different expressions, you can get a lot out of each individual color and really see the endless possibilities and combinations that you can come up with. And so, like I said, in the end, it takes practice and have fun with it. That's really the key to all of this. So there you have it. This is our basic form of all of the terms of what is really basic color theory, and really helps set apart that color theory that in terms of taking you to the next level. Now, there's some tips and tricks I'd really like to talk about with you guys that have helped me along the way to improve. First and foremost, I can't say it enough. Practice. You have to practice. That is absolutely key to your improvement in terms of understanding color theory and what colors work for you and your media. Don't ever forget the fact that your media is such a key component to that. The media that you use, if you're more of a digital artist, you're going to have an entirely different approach versus someone that's going to be using watercolor, for example. The other part of that is key is pick a color to focus in on. Don't focus in on the entire expanse, truly expanse, of the color wheel. Pick a color to focus in on and make that color the focus of everything else, which leads to that next category, which is less is more. That's it. Less is more. Don't overuse a particular color or massive amounts of color. You can really bombard. It really simplifies down to just a core group of colors. 3 is really good. I certainly wouldn't do any more than 5, which is why we like the groupings of 5. Last thing that I would like to talk about is color tools. Now, this last color tool, which is the Pantone Studio App. It's an incredible app that gives you a lot of capabilities. One is you snap a picture, and here you can see of a picture that I've snapped just really quick of my favorite books. And this could be of a painting, maybe your favorite painting. It could be any combination of things. And the really cool thing about it is that you can see me messing around with different colors and picking another color that might work in terms of making the right combination for what you're ultimately trying to produce. Then you can ultimately send that on and share that on to your other medias or wherever it might go, which then, inspiring you guys to do amazing things. So that's color theory, and this is my favorite app to help really narrow down some of these ideas.
One more thing before you take off. Now, we certainly appreciate the likes, the subscribes, and they do help this video to be seen by others that wouldn't have otherwise seen it per the algorithm and all those good things. However, we really do believe with Tikvah Inc. and Tikvah Minds this idea of directly connecting with you guys and finding better ways of how to go about doing that, which is why we're developing our own website of tikvahminds.com and doing a few other things. So, to be able to just really get into this mindset of directly supporting artists, yes, you can subscribe, you can like, all those things. However, what we want to ask you to do is come to our website, come check it out at elijahloving.com/ what is it? Patron? Come check it out at elijahloving.com / patron. There you'll find all of our fun ways of finding ways to directly support the artists. And that's what we would really prefer. However, we understand there's so many different ways to be able to do that, and we thank you above all, thank you for watching this video. You guys are awesome. Have a great day. We'll see you later, guys. Bye.